love and longing. He's not going to hurt anyone. He's just here because he lives here. Dale assures the hordes of Harcool and barless children that are staring up at Vernon sitting on top of his personal tower. But he killed, Burn Barless begins. No one. Your families are fine. All he did was scare them really badly. Dale assures them, and the children in the crowd look at him in shock. Killing without a point isn't something he does. But he's a sorcerer, a child protests. So are your brothers. Dale returns and there's some chattering. What's going on? One of the children asks. Well, it's a day off and Vernon thinks that it's time you stop being so scared of him. Dale replies and Vernon gives a wave. So we're stopping nice and easy. He's not going to come down until you let him, okay? So, what's going on? Nothing is going on. Not in the forest, at least. Today is only different from yesterday in that it's a break day, Dale says. What about outside of it? A child asks. Didn't we see that the world is fine? From on top of the trees, maybe, but what's it like on the ground? A child challenges. I can answer that, Vernon calls out from on top of his tower. No, you stay up there, you rotten run. One of the bolder children shouts up at him and he thumbs his nose at her. Now, play nice. He's harmless, Dale says. No, I'm not, Vernon protests from on top of the tower. Quiet you, Dale shouts up at him before smiling at the kids. There's some snickering as Vernon does not answer beyond hunching down and glaring like he got disciplined. See? Harmless. There's some more laughter as Vernon shakes his fist threateningly at Dale for that. Now, you've all been behaving fairly well, so I have a question for you. What is it? What kind of reward do you want? Dale asks, and there's a huge upflow of questions and requests as the kids each try to be heard over the other, over and over again until they're all shouting to try and be heard. Down! Calm down, kids! I can come down, Vernon calls from above. No, shut up! Dale snaps at him, and there's some laughter. All right, now I heard some suggestions. I'm sorry to say you can't go home. It's not safe there for you, but I also heard about favorite snacks, allowances, and toys. So, what I'm going to do is get each of you an allowance, and on the next rest day, you can ask a sorcerer ahead of time to take you somewhere to buy the snacks or toys. But you only get the allowance or the trip if you're behaving. No fighting outside of practice, no stealing from each other, and no breaking each other's things, okay? Unless you don't want a girdle a week? Vernon calls down from on high and Dale turns. Could you not bribe the children into liking you? Dale demands. Only if it doesn't work, Vernon calls back. Just go away. Dale calls out and Vernon stands up, makes a mocking gesture and steps off the roof, vanishing as he starts to fall. There we go. That's better. Hey, pretty lady, is this seat taken? Vernon asks as he slips in next to Miro Noir. You're back a little early. The children don't like me too much, but things are moving. Dale is going to give them an allowance, it seems, Vernon says before leaning against her. How are our little wonders doing? Oh, just fine. Their grandmother and great aunts have all but claimed them for their own, so there's at least 3 older apuk for each little girl. Miro Noir notes before smiling. Getting them back may be an issue. I think we can manage that, Vernon says. I'd hope so. Things will be scary if a battle princess and sorcerer can't even handle their non-combat mothers and in-laws. Huh? He agrees. They just cuddle up together and enjoy things. So, do you know how? They both trail off with some light laughter as they started to say the same thing at the same time. There is a moment before Miro Noir sighs. How about some dancing instead? I'd love to, Vernon says as he rises off the couch and offers his hand to her to help her up. On the water? Oh, Vernon, I'd love to, she says, taking his hand, and then all of a sudden they're elsewhere, in the shade of the dark forest and standing on the floating pads and flowers at the edge of one of its small lakes. He walks her out deeper into the water and then leads them into a sliding dance. Again? The sap, Dale mutters to himself. Then he realizes this is more or less perfect. Tell me, kiddies, are you still scared of the big bad sorcerer Vernon? Who? The guy that was on the roof. He clarifies to the children. There's a lot of babbling at that, but before any consensus can be reached, Dale taps the wall of the building and images begin to play across it. Because this is what he likes to spend most of his time doing. The children see Vernon pick up Noir even as he skids across the mirror-smooth lake and spins with her. She's set down after a few rotations and the spinning is turned into a long, sweeping slide with their hands linked together despite her back being against his chest. They start skating back and forth in a zigzag pattern as they dart around the lake. A slight breeze starts to make things choppy, and they ramp off a small wave before Vernon touches down on the water first, and it instantly settles. It's once more smooth, and the dance turns into another tango. Still think he's so scary? Dale asks the watching children before he lets it fade. If he's so happy, why was he so scary before? Dirk Barlis asks. Because he was trying to scare people to stop them from fighting, Dale says patiently. Your families fight a lot and it's not a good thing. So he tried to stop it, but they wouldn't listen to him, so he had to get scary. But it looked so bad, Gorharkle says. That was the point. He looked scary, so he wouldn't have to do anything too bad. It's called intimidation. It can stop fights before they start, Dale says. It doesn't always work, though. Nothing really does. Huh? It means that sometimes you can do everything right, do it all perfect, and things can still go wrong. The world is kind of unfair like that. Why don't we go to a different one? A kid asks. By which I mean, sometimes life isn't fair. Dale corrects himself. Sometimes you had to watch yourself in a post-FTL society. There's a bit of ribbing as several children pull away from the crowd. Despite Dale saying this was a break day, everyone was still being closely watched and few kids actually liked the idea of an authority figure looming overhead, let alone them looming overhead literally. Go away, you stupid Barlis. Leave us alone. We're going to do our own thing. Hani Harkul snarls at her follower, who frowns and crosses her arms. I'm making sure you two don't get up to something evil, she announces. Play nice, children, a sorcerer says, poking his head around the building they were closest to, and then all three of them rush over to see him properly when he pulls his head back and he's already gone. There's a pause as the three just sort of glare at each other. Hani and Via are not willing to go anywhere with the barless girl following, and she in turn is not letting them go anywhere unwatched. For the love of God, do you kids just not know how to play? The sorcerer asks again, opening the door to the house and stepping out. I mean, really, do you even know each other's name? She's a barless. She's going to do something to us. They're Harkle. They're up to no good. Beyond the last name? Is there anything beyond the last name? The sorcerer asks them and they all cross their arms. Okay, no, not playing that. Then there is light. Suddenly all four of them are on top of massive leaves in the green sea that is the treetops of the dark forest. A flock of birds take off around them, and far in the distance they can see a large dark storm cloud suddenly flash as lightning crests over it more than once. You three don't know anything about each other. You have no reason to dislike each other beyond what your parents told you to do. Which is weird. When I was as small as you, I thought my mom and dad were big dummies just trying to stop me from having fun. Mostly because the fact I made traps all over the place ended up killing a wild animal and they kept it from me for 10 years. But the point stands. Why do you believe your parents about this? They're a bunch of big dummies. Why do this? Who are you? Hani Harkul demands, and the sorcerer gives a bow. Call me Masood, the dusky-skinned man says before stroking his short and pointed chin beard. Now what are your names? Introduce yourselves to each other. You're going to be living together for a time, and the more friends you have, the easier it is. I'm Via Harcool. This is my half-sister, Hani Harcool. We're 100 times better than any stinky Barlise." "Stinky?" Masood asks, before grabbing the Barlise girl and taking a sniff near her. He then grabs the Harcool siblings and does so for them as well before sniffing at his armpit. "No, that's not anyone here. Stinky doesn't work this time." "Jerk," Hani Harcool says as she kicks him in the side and steps away from him. "No, Masood, it means lucky. Now we have the Harcool names. What about you, young Barlis?" "Onsa Barlis," she says, "and I'm onto you. I'm not going to let any evil girls hurt others while I'm here." "You'll have an easy time then. There are none in the forest," Masood says kindly. "Aha, we're on the forest. That means there are evil girls," Onsa declares with a pointing finger to the two Harcool siblings. "You're a girl and you're on the forest. Does that make you evil?" Masood asks and gets a wonderful scowl from her. "Right. Well, time for some family bonding." "Family?" Hani begins to ask before the massive leaf they're on suddenly starts to fall and all three girls fall down and the tipping upwards edges sweep them down towards Masood, who acts like an anchor as the huge leaf drifts downwards. You've lived so long hearing about how bad and awful the other family is, but do any of you actually think? Ansa, you think that Hani and Via are going to do something bad? Why? They're Harcool. That's all the excuse they need. Hani, Via, you two think that Ansa is going to try and hurt you somehow if she sticks around, right? Why? She's a Barlis. It's what they do. How many do you know? What? All three girls ask, and then there's glaring between the family lines. No, really. How do you know this? Have any of you actually met the other family before coming here to the dark forest? Well, my mom did. And is your mom right about everything? Well, is she right about what time it is to go to bed? Masood asks, and there's a pause. He mentally congratulates himself. No kid likes to be told about bedtime, and no matter how good or bad a parent, all of them have had an argument with their child about a proper bedtime. People make mistakes all the time. They can mess up. They can easily be wrong about things. As he says this, they settle into a wide stream that turns the massive leaf from a glider to a boat as they're now being carried downstream. How is someone being an awful person a mistake? Something that big would be everything about someone, Ansa Barlis declares. The Barlis is right about something, Via states, and Masood smiles. Do you really think so? He asks. I do. So say, being evil and scary and mean would be everything that makes up a person, Masood asks as they turn a bend on the stream. The setup is going flawlessly. Yes, Hani states, and Masood nods even as they go around one final bend and are gently dumped into a small, still lake. Like that really scary evil man over there? Masood asks, pointing to where Vernon is slowly turning in a circle with Miro Noir, the very picture of mutual adoration as they slow dance on the water. All three of the girls turn to look, duck down below the lip of the leaf, and then peek over to watch. What are they doing? Dancing. Your big, mean, scary sorcerer loves his wife and children more than anything. What about his other wives? He doesn't have any. It's so he can love her as much as he can, Masood says as he slowly stands up and holds out his hand to have the dark forest throw a branch at him. In his hand it grows massively long, and he pushes against the bottom of the lake to start moving them around the blissful couple. Not everything is simple and easy, which is why you shouldn't feel just one way about something. If you can only hate it, if you're only angry, then you're doing something wrong.